It's time for the Film Crickets with Jay Fortier, Chris Martineau, and Melanie Howerton. On this week's episode, the Crickets will be joined by Elizabeth from the YouTube channel Movies with Mom. Jay, Chris, Melanie, and Elizabeth will be reviewing the 1997 American epic romance and disaster film, Titanic. Does it stand the test of time? Let's find out. Your Film Crickets are on now.
All right. Hey, friends, and welcome to the Film Crickets. It's a podcast where we talk about the past, where we revisit movies from 1980 to 1999 and decide beyond the shadow of a doubt whether or not these movies stand the test of time. I am your co-host, Jay Fortier, along with my good friend, Chris Martineau.
Hello, Jason.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, oh, nothing.
Yeah, and also we have our good friend and co-host, Melanie Howerton.
Hey.
All right.
I'm cold. I'm going to try not to cough the whole time, okay?
It's all right. Thank you for braving the under the weather thing you're going through. So you're here, and thank you so much. But we are also joined today by the host of her YouTube channel. She does reactions to movies, and we're honored to have her here. It's Elizabeth from Movies with Mom. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
This will be fun. Yeah. So, we were excited. So, Chris, usually you ask everybay about
I know.
their history with everything. No. I'm gonna throw it over to you.
Well, I didn't know if I could get so Movies with Mom. Can you tell me a little more? I saw some of the video, but can you tell me kind of what the idea of your YouTube channel is before we go further with this, just for context on Titanic?
Right. Well, I think I'd have to start with saying this was, I guess, branded by my husband. He loves film. We both love film. Your
husband has been branded with the Titanic? I mean, this is getting a little weird.
Well, specifically the Movies with Mom.
Okay.
He personally likes watching reaction videos, especially people who've never seen Star Wars or, Lord of the Rings.
That'd be me.
It's just, he gets a yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys. What's the address of the cave that you all live in? Okay, fine. Jesus Christ. Okay.
So, and then he thought, man, you've seen a lot of movies, but I have different perspective now being a mom.
Okay.
When I watch movies. And so he thought, man, we should hear your reactions. And my dad's like, you talk all the time during movies, and it'd be great to get your response. But I feel like personally on my channel, I look very like drone-like,
Okay.
But I do have a bigger personality than it might come across when I'm reacting.
So you're a person that talks a lot during movies. So maybe this is just kind of like a low-key way to get you out of the room while other people are trying to watch their films. Is that possible
it could
yet?
be.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I
mean, in the theaters, I keep quiet.
Sure.
But at home.
Of course. Hey, if you can't do that at home, when can you, No, I'm obviously just kidding. So, all right, so going around the horn here, obviously it seems like Titanic was, when we reached out to you, Titanic was your idea. But let's go around here. Like, I like to see what people's history is with this movie. This movie obviously has a long history with kind of, getting to the heart of the sea of people. So when was the first time, Melanie? I said your name first. So Melanie, when was the first time you saw this movie? What's your history with this movie? How many times have you seen it, roughly? What's going on?
Okay, so actually, one of my first dates with my husband was to see this movie.
All right.
And we loved it. And it's just, I don't know. It's like, again, it's. I say this a lot, but it's like one of those movies where you're flipping channels and it's on. You're like, oh, you need to start watching it again. Even though I actually didn't watch it for this because it was such a long movie and I've seen it so many times that I don't need to watch it again, and I just didn't have the time to do it, recently. So, but I've seen it a bunch of times. I don't know how many.
Okay, so a lot. Do we own it?
No, you know what? I don't own it.
Don't own it. Okay, fair enough. Let's go, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, what's your history with this film? Tell me about your deal with Jack and Rose.
Actually, my parents took me to see it in theaters when I was 9 when it came out. So
Oh my God,
here I am wedged in between my parents.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. I need to get out my walker.
Right.
Before I
get out. Yep. Boy.
But I'm a huge fan of like historical fiction films.
Okay.
So this one was just like I just couldn't believe that this is part of history, right? That actually this huge ocean liner sank and so many people lost their lives. And so I got books from the library about it, and I was reading about the actual people that were on the ship and stuff. And I mean, when you're 9, things are kind of obsessions, right?
Sure.
For those little periods in your life. So I actually watched it several Saturdays in place of Saturday morning cartoons. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, there is illustration in the movie, so sort of like cartoons. Just one frame, rather nude,
Right,
but that's
right.
fine. Whatever.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
yeah.
And
Jason,
and you saw it this weekend?
I did, yeah. My husband took me to. I have to say, it's a lot better watching it with your spouse than with your parents.
yes,
For many reasons, but
yes, I would say. All right.
They did. They did a re-release for the 25th anniversary in the theaters.
yeah, in 3D.
Whoa!
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
Last
Oh,
night.
look at you!
You went to see it too?
Goddamn! All right.
Nice.
I got I was like because I learned it through you that I was like, really, it's gonna be the theater. So I was like, well, let me see if I can. We had a couple of passes, and I was like, let's go. So
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
So Jay, obviously you just saw it. What about
that was
before
first
that?
time?
What-
No,
what
I'm
you-
kidding. I saw it. I
What's
saw it
this
on New
movie I
Year's
hear so much
Day
about?
years ago.
Really?
I saw it years ago. Not New Year's Day. And it was you and I had worked at the Red Sox clubhouse in Massachusetts, and I remember you raving about it like that week or whatever. You had seen it like not that long prior, and you were like, "It's great, it's so much fun, whatever." I mean, you really had to see it. It was just like selling out left and right.
Yep.
At the
Yeah,
time.
it was.
And you don't hear that as much as anymore. I mean, COVID aside, I'm talking about like you still don't hear that a lot when you show up at the theater and you're like, sorry, this showing was sold out, and it stayed in the theater a long time. So it was a really like a fun experience, which is kind of sad if you think about it. It was so much fun, all these people.
I love
But
when
really,
people
no,
die
it was like,
that.
but still,
Right.
it was a cool. I mean, we have to get into that aspect of the blockbuster. I think it's a really interesting take because it's made into this blockbuster but these people, 700 people went in to like as she says at the end or whatever, or 1,500, right? But 700 lived, yeah.
That's
look at that.
That's
I noticed your background too. That's amazing.
It's my mom's.
some
That's
cheery
cool.
decor.
Yeah.
Anything else like Chernobyl or
She has
any other
all like
happy headlines?
Yeah, she's
Some people
just-
have live, laugh, love. You have that, so
Yeah,
that's nice.
She has like all these historical, like the huge historical events that have happened, and like in newspapers. Like on the other side too, I forgot something about, and I forgot what the other side is. But each side of them says something, and she's got the Lindenberg, like everything that you could think of. But I grabbed this off of her wall just now.
Oh, the Hindenburg, yeah.
Hindenburg, yeah.
But this was actually like a replica, a remake of the actual front page of a newspaper.
Well, it was a big deal. Everybody suddenly started buying all this stuff about something we'd all knew about, but it got into the zeitgeist. So let me get into my story with this. I did see in the theater in 1997. Jay, I love you to pieces. I don't remember having that conversation with you at Red Sox Clubhouse that you should see it, but it sounds like something I'd say because I did like it when I saw it. It was amazing the amount of impact it had on people's lives. Also, side note, another person that we worked with at the same retail store in Massachusetts, his name was Steve. He was not like I wouldn't classify him as a tough guy, and that's not. He just wasn't like Mr. Brrr, but we hung out as dudes.
Yeah, not the beer,
Yeah, like
the
we were
beer
all dudes.
guzzling
We're-
man's man crushing his head on a forehead guy. Yeah.
But we all hung out
that
as
guy.
dudes and talked sports and all that sort of stuff. But you would tell me like he would, I think, and I'm sorry, Steve, if you're out there, I'm pretty sure you said this, that when the Celine Dion song came on, he's like, oh, and he like here's like a 19-year-old like dude who likes sports, and it's like when she hits that high note, man, oh. what I mean? Like, you gotta cry. How do you not cry? So yeah, I saw it the once, and I didn't see it 7 times like a lot of people did. It like turned into E.T. This was the new E.T. Like people just going to the theater over and over and over to see a movie. I did buy the $40 double VHS when it came out because everybody was buying that. I proceeded to watch that once, and then probably only watched it one other time than that. Again, not that I don't like it. It's just not something I wanted to watch on repeat. Just probably because of how long the movie was. Yeah, but nowadays, you know, like I said, Wakanda Forever is 2 hours and 45 minutes. Endgame is 3 hours and 15. I've watched the editor's cut or the director's cut of The Abyss, which is like 3 hours and 40 minutes. Like it's better though. It's way too long.
No, but it's way better. It makes the ending a lot more. It makes a lot more sense at the end. So
it does. But anyway, so that's our history with Titanic. We have a lot to talk about. Again, it's going to be tough. This movie is really, really good. Cameron he gets his blank check to make whatever movie he wants from this point going forward because of this movie. And it's certainly, we got to talk about it being in the zeitgeist. It's so you have to talk about it. And I'll get into that with your history as a 9-year-old being obsessed with this movie and my son's obsession with this movie in 2009 when he was about 5 or 6 or 7. But let's get into it. So let's do the IMDb breakdown and then we'll talk about Titanic. So here we go. We're covering the movie Titanic. Have you heard of it? I'm not sure. Titanic came out in 1997, PG-13, 3 hours and 14 minutes long. In a sentence, Titanic can be summarized as the following. A 17-year-old, that's right, she's 17. Forgot about that. Yeah. A 17-year-old aristocrat falls in love with a kind but poor artist aboard the luxurious, ill-fated RMS Titanic. Written and directed by James Cameron. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, Kathy Bates, Francis Fisher, Gloria Stewart, Bill Paxton, Bernard Hill, any other biggies, Victor Garber's in this, David Warner's in this. Holy smokes, everybody's in this movie. But that's basically the whole deal. That's Titanic, right? It's one of those movies, it's like Lord of the Rings. Guess what? The ring's going in the volcano. It's not about the ending. Because we know what's going to happen.
I don't.
Shit's going down. Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, the Titanic, yes, but not the other.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, like, but you know what I mean? Like, you know what's going to happen. It's in the setup, so why do we care? So then the journey must be some journey. Mm-hmm. So for everybody in the room, I'll pose the question, what to you was the most impactful part of the journey of this movie? Like, what was the thing that sunk into your head the most? I'll just throw it out there. Anybody can volunteer.
Let's start with Elizabeth.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Sure. I was giving her a moment to
it's
think.
Zero pressure.
That's like a...
I know,
that's a deep question.
That's what I kind of do.
We're starting off heavy.
Yeah, why not?
I think, well, a couple things. Like I mentioned, I like historical fiction. So just the history, it opened up, I mean, that was back early AOL. So it's like being able to research on the computer.
Sure.
But also being a 9-year-old girl when it came out, just the appeal of, some girl being like a princess almost being swept off her feet by this charming, handsome, guy. It just, I mean, it's just like a little 9-year-old's, I guess, fantasy, if I could say that, know. Big Disney princess fan too, so.
Reluctant princess, though. Reluctant princess.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's really the deal with this is that, you have this person on screen who you would think is, you get actually they're flat broke. I mean, that's why we're marrying Billy Zane, right? The monster, who's a monster. I mean, he's a monster.
Oh, yeah.
He's a monster. Wow. So we're marrying him because we find out they're flat broke. And so they are living the lifestyle, but not really. And, you think you go into it going, well, how can you be unhappy with all this stuff? Right? Because everybody wants their stuff. So how can you be unhappy with all this stuff? But she's kind of suicidal. Not kind of. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to diminish that. She is suicidal. I apologize. That's not what I meant. She's suicidal. She understands where her life is going to go. Doesn't want to be part of it at all. She's being in an arranged marriage. I mean, that's about as princess as you can get. Yeah. Arranged marriages are more the norm than not. So,
right.
We actually get to dig into the psyche of the Gilded Cage. which is interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because and we have a floating gilded cage. I don't know. That's kind of neat. That's your foundation. It's a pretty good
Right.
foundation.
It's like reverse Cinderella.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I never thought of that. That's fantastic.
I have an
It
answer
is-
for you.
Go ahead,
I had
Melanie.
to think for a while. So, because there's a love story and the whole, to me, like she said, I'm into historical things like that. But I don't know, for me, it's a little bit different. Like, I've always been in awe ever since I was young of just the way things looked and how people lived before. Like, one of the towns that I grew up in was just all historic houses. And just, I loved driving through that town, looking at the houses and looking at how things were made back then and imagining who lived there. And so when you see this in the movie theater and they start with this, how everybody's dressed and all the costumes and, walking into the ship and looking at how everything was back then, how fancy everything was. And just, I was in awe of all of that, just the way everything looked and how precise they tried to make things look as if it was back then. That to me was the coolest thing. I mean, just them walking into the gym or anywhere, walking into like the dining room or anywhere, I was like, wow, look at that. To me, that was really the coolest thing about the movie. And then, of course, the love story. And then, of course, my Emma didn't even want to watch it because she knew how it was going to end. And she knew she was going to cry. So I had to force her to watch it. And she did cry her eyes out. And she will not watch it again. But Chloe will watch it again and loves it just because it's such a great movie. But I was just in awe of just everything, the way it looked and all the detail and all the work that they put into everything, really.
Sure. Well, I mean, Cameron's kind of known for getting the details right, much to the chagrin of everybody on set.
Yes, I heard that.
He's the Neo Kubrick, right? You're gonna do it over and over and over and over again until I get it the way I want to see it.
Well, I have an example of that.
Go ahead, Jay.
I watched the behind the scenes and a while ago, and the part where the lifeboats are coming down, and then there's another lifeboat below, and it's almost crushing the people that are on the lower one, and one of their assistants radios in and goes, do you think maybe we shouldn't get too close, to them because it might actually hit them and hurt them. He's like, thank you very much for your input, but I'm trying to make a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, ouch, man, that sucks.
I literally have something about that
I mean?
exact part too that you're talking about. It's just a little bit different. So I read that he told them that they had to sit in there for literally hours until they got everything straight, and that the first person who gets out is fired. So people were literally peeing in there, in the water and the lifeboats, because they had to go to the bathroom and they were afraid they were going to get fired. People actually quit during that part. People got bladder infections, kidney infections, hypothermia, everything making that one part because he was such an ass about it, trying to make everything perfect. I don't know where
frustrating about
that it's supposed to be.
Is it why can't he do good work without rubbing everyone the wrong way? You know what I mean? It just sucks. It's I hate hearing that because he's so good. He really is. I love his work.
He is. Yeah. I mean, most of his films are top box office. Right? All the avatars. I don't know how well Aliens did in theaters, but it's my favorite of the anthology. So
it did very well.
I want to say for the most part, once he made it big, I don't think he's had an opening that wasn't number one. And
just crazy.
So I get that.
Yeah.
But when Tyrant is, and maybe they're not saying that particular word, but when that rep is following you, that sucks. I hate knowing that. Because it's it's almost like there's this asterisk next to his head.
Sure. Well, and I guess it's you fed the monster, right? If somebody that already had an ego and a chip on his shoulder has success right away and continuously has success, well, now you're it feeds the beast and you become invulnerable, or you think you can say and do whatever. And if an actor quits, we'll just get another one, because who doesn't want to work with this guy? Right. One has two thumbs and wants to work with this guy. So, but let's get back to the actual story of the Titanic.
No, but I never actually said why you
I'm sorry, Jay.
No, that's all right. I
apologize.
I had to jump on. No, I had to jump on and talk about what a pleasant man he sounds like.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, I think what I like so much is, I don't think most people who are watching the movie are as poor as Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Jack, okay? But I think he writes it in such a way that we all feel like we are him. You know what I mean? Like, because who among us really, how many people really can say that they can relate to Cal and his family? You know what I mean? Like, how many that are watching this movie really are the top 1%? Almost no one. So it sets it up nicely so you feel, and that's kind of like what's always driven me is I don't like those people. I don't like the people who are better than you just because they say they are. Like, you know what I mean? Like anybody who says that, like, or anybody who acts like that. For instance, the mother in this movie, Rose's mother. Oh, yeah, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
God.
But like, she is poor. She has no money, but can't let go of her attitude, meaning she's walking with Rose, sees Molly Brown and goes, new money, like mouths the word like, we were from, you know what I mean? Like, she can't let go of that ego. I mean, yet she's broke, you know what I mean? Like, but still in her head, better than Molly Brown.
Well, nothing's worse than when she didn't want to get lowered into the lifeboats with like second-class citizens in her eyes when people were going to die. I mean, how much of a rotten person is she?
But at least her daughter called her out.
Right, I love that part. She's like, "Do you not realize?" Yeah.
So we're all gunning for the little guy, basically, right? And so he sets up the table pretty early. There's nothing not to like about Leo DiCaprio. Like, does he have anything about him that you're like, I don't really like this about him? He's handsome. He's happy, even though he's destitute. He can hold his own conversationally with the upper class and the bilge rats, because they're down in the bilge. They're down in the engine room. So he can rub elbows with basically anybody. And who doesn't want to be that? Who doesn't want to be able to have a conversation with basically anybody at any time? And also, we got to like Leo because he just doesn't give a shit. He's going to say whatever to whomever about whatever, because what has he got to lose?
Nothing.
He's got nothing to lose. So doesn't he intimate that? Like, the fact that he's lucky enough to be on this vessel talking to you nice people, quote unquote. I mean, it's a backhanded comment, but an awesome piece of dialogue because it can go so many different ways. Because he is lucky to be there. He snuck on with his own street smarts, right? Who doesn't want to do street smarts? Yeah. Like, who doesn't back street smarts? Everybody loves that. So Cameron is kind of setting that up, that he's setting up a couple of things. You're going to like this guy from the beginning to the end. He's not perfect, but he's not terrible. Just like everybody. Like, I'd like to say, like, we're all not perfect, but we're all not terrible people. Whereas the Yurch people, he's setting up the classes. He's setting up literally and figuratively the people in the basement to the people on the top floor. Socially and physically down at the bottom, and Leo is able to transcend all of that up, and Kate can transcend that all the way down, and it's just a neat little way. It's a neat little social ladder. I don't know. That's the part that I liked. I love the romance is good because the acting is good, so you believe that they care about each other. If they weren't good, you wouldn't believe they cared about each other, so it doesn't hit home. But I really like that table setting. Of the classes and the romance, because then when it pays it off at the end, you're entwined in both. And that's not an easy task, I think. I don't know. Call me nuts. Anybody?
No, and you also know that she could care less about money because she knows that he has absolutely no money at all, and that she really is completely in love with him. You know, like, money doesn't mean anything to her. And I don't think a lot of people back then would be like that. They would not have the guts to walk away from, supposed everything and safety and comfort and, structure to go off with someone that they have no idea where they're going to live or have no money or anything. You know what I mean?
And he's also not interested in her money.
Right.
Yes.
Like, we don't see that he's after her money. He likes her for her. He talks about the fire inside her and what he loves about her, and it's not the money.
Right.
And you see how he didn't react when she showed him the necklace? He didn't really like go, like, he didn't gasped. He went, like, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
He was like,
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
reach the bottom with that thing.
No,
Right,
I
right.
meant the necklace.
Yeah, that's what
it was. It was it was her ring that he said
The
she
ring.
was saying.
Oh, the
But
ring,
yeah,
she said.
But
Okay.
but the
Yeah.
but when he I know you did. You didn't get to watch it this weekend, but I mean, you get the gist of it.
No. I remember when he
but,
saw it later on when who was going to draw her. That's when she took it out.
Right, but he didn't act like it was that big a deal. He reacted a little when he saw all the piles of cash in the thing, but he still wasn't that overly like. You know what I mean? Like,
should
so
take
you
this?
never
Yeah.
even got that
Yeah.
vibe
Yeah.
that was important. You know what I mean? Yes, getting money is important. You know, if you had it, it's great, but he wasn't about to take it. I also
not
loved his
a-
confidence at the dinner when, like, he's talking to them, and then, like, he's not going to be outshined by Cal or anybody like who always, like, has to look down on him. He's like, like, he even whips out the matches and whips them towards him.
Yes,
Because
I love
Cal
that.
pulls out the cigar, and it's like every time Cal tries to insult him by, like, wouldn't interest you, talking about money and business,
Yeah.
But it's like
Right.
it's just like that little dig. But he's like,
Yeah.
screw you, pal. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not taking the bait.
That dinner scene was great because everybody was, what do you call it? Like, just loved him.
Yeah.
Right? Everything he said, and except for Cal, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But, all these people with loads of money figured out that he didn't have a ton, and that didn't matter. They still ate every word
Yeah.
he offered.
Yep. Because
they loved him.
that should transcend that. He is kind of, he's Matt Damon from Good Will Hunting with less cursing.
Yeah.
But I will say this, like, but think about the trope that they don't take. We have a poor guy. He's surrounded by the necklace and the ring. Other movies would have been, they would have, or other directors maybe. Again, he wrote the movie, but they would have said, "Well, have him kind of drool over the necklace." So that when it is planted on him, we as the audience will say, well, maybe you did take it. But now he feels bad. He never is interested in it. How many movies does that happen where you have this kind of like, oh, now the couple that you're rooting for to fall in love, like for a moment, like the tension is they suddenly have a misunderstanding and they hate each other. But that's not the case. They didn't take that. They didn't even
And
like
they show you the planting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
for instance,
he's-
like other movies would maybe not show you the plant and then make you doubt it for a second.
Right. Yeah,
Yep.
you didn't doubt it for a second. You knew for a fact that he didn't do it. You just knew he didn't do it.
Right, but it's an easy path to take because it's an easy way to have conflict.
Yeah.
But the conflict, they didn't want any conflict between the two main characters. The conflict was between the classes, not the characters. And the classes that were keeping them apart, which obviously is your Romeo and Juliet analogy, though not direct.
Which he
but
said, by the
obviously-
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, did he when he sold the movie to the execs? He
Oh,
had
he
a
did?
picture, like he had a book, like with the picture of like it going down with the stars behind it, and he says, "Romeo and Juliet on this boat, or
he's-
on this ship," and then they were like, "Cool," and like he hadn't written the word yet, so he gets the movie greenlit just based on that.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story about Cameron and Elizabeth might like this because she liked aliens? I've heard this story from two separate sources on two different podcasts. Again, not primary, but Alien was made in '79. Cameron gets the idea for Aliens, so he goes into a pitch meeting with 20th Century Fox. Literally, he's got all the execs there. He's pitching Aliens, and he writes on the board, "Alien," like on a chalkboard, "Alien," and looks at them. And he puts an S on the end of it. No reaction. And then he turns the S into a $sign. And they said, we'll make it. It's like, I'm going to make you a
wonder why he's
boatload of
egotistical.
cash. Listen to me here.
Right.
So I think what we're getting at here is why this movie does have something for everybody, right? It's got class warfare, Romeo and Juliet. It's got great love story. It's got two beautiful people, but not overtly, staggeringly handsome, beautiful people, but obviously just cutie patooties in the front, and they are in the front, acting their asses off. You believe everything they're saying. You've got the the beginning with some history, like we start with obviously the old lady, and then we weave a tale as old as time. So it's got everything for everybody, including a disaster. I mean, like, you're waiting for the disaster to happen. And the genius of this film was, do you remember the trailers for this movie? Do you remember the trailers for Titanic?
I don't.
Oh, you were an 8. Hold on, you remember back in the day? The trailers for this movie were friggin' genius. They didn't talk about the romance at all. Oops, sorry. They just were selling the technological wonder of making this film, and all you saw was that scene where the boat goes straight up, they're hanging on the back, and people are falling and like bouncing off of the turnstiles, and that was the trailer. So people were going in for that and then getting, I think, surprised when it was all this other stuff, or that's how they sold it. So it literally had something for everybody. For me, I was waiting for the boat stuff. I want to see that boat crack in half. I want to see people drown. I want to see people fall, because I'm a god. No, I'm just saying, like, I want an action movie, damn it. I want Aliens. I want Terminator. I want that from Cameron. I know I'll get it. I just got to wade through this other stuff. Lo and behold, you start caring about the other stuff. Tell me, I mean, honestly, that's where this movie is.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said it, because
I'm glad I said that too.
And the cat is also glad I said it.
Yes.
Melanie's cat. Cameo. No, but you know what? I've seen like different documentaries or just different stuff on it now, like meaning like as of years have gone by. And it's funny, guys tend to have like a revisionist history of how they thought of this movie.
Sure.
Guys tend to go, like when it came out, they're like, that was awesome. That was so much. Oh my God. When you know, like they'd talk about when after the boat sank and you see all the sea of people and the, you know, just suffering, and they're like, oh man, you know, I mean, how do you keep a dry eye? You know, like everything. And then all of a sudden, you know, years go by, the song got tired of, you know, like people like got sick of hearing it, or some people, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, man, I didn't really like it that much. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Like, no, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it tends to become this thing. It's like, no. You were enjoying the damn thing. You just can't admit it. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's just sad, though.
It's definitely gotten the most hate.
Really?
Like, it really has.
The movie or the song?
Yeah, well, the movie, because even when I was telling friends, like, yeah, you know, Tim, my husband's taken me to see it, they're like, ugh.
Why?
And I'm like, why? I don't know what it is, because when I ask, they're like, oh, it's just stupid. You know, it's like they can't ever explain why they don't like it.
Yeah.
But that's just, you know, what you hear.
Yeah.
Or what I hear, at least.
Well, I mean, but let's look at it. It got into the zeitgeist. It's the same as, you know, it's like you don't have to have seen the movie to know about the movie. It's like it's like the name Superman. Like, kids grow up, if you've never had a Superman comic in your house and you've never seen you never have Superman movies in your house, little kids know who Superman is. And it's that. And because it's kind of cool to say, well, everybody likes it, so I'm going to go the opposite way. There is that blowback. Like, well, yeah, but I mean, and also there's so many jokes about it. There's so many tropes. Yeah. There's so many skits. There's so many times it's lampooned. I was hoping to I have a friend of mine who was my student. He's visiting me from Texas. He was here a couple of weeks ago. He came back because he's just trying to get a lay of the air and wants to move to this general area. So I was hoping to have him come down. Having audio issues, so I decided not to. But I asked him, "What do you think about this movie?" And he just said, "It's corny." Yeah. It's corny. So that's Gen Z. So Gen Z is saying it's corny. You know, when he wanted to bring up.
You probably haven't watched it.
No, he's seen it.
Last night, though, when I saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
Years ago, I remember this being a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
In the the part where she just got done talking about the portrait scene when he was drawing her, and then they come back, and she goes, "That was the most erotic moment of my life," and everyone's like,
"Oh, I love that!"
Everyone's like just glued to her every word.
Yeah.
Yep.
It got a laugh in 1997. It got a laugh last night.
Yeah.
Now people pretty much
Yeah.
were ready for it to come last night, and then they still laughed out loud, looking at everybody's faces. And I got to say, also, I was excited to hear just people applauded a little bit at the end when it was over. It was like, look at that!
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You don't get to hear that much in the theater.
Guys, where's the other laugh in this movie?
Well, there's a
When
couple,
she's
but
looking in the mirror, you mean which one? When the old lady, when she's looking in the
Is
mirror,
it the hand?
reflections changed?
No. I mean like a
know.
legit. No. I mean a legit laugh moment, a comedy moment.
There's a
Them
couple.
staring at the old lady is a comedy moment. There's another comedy moment. Which one is it?
There's a couple I can name.
Name one.
Okay. There's Music to Drown By. Now I know I'm in first class.
All right, I forgot about
There's
that.
also
That is a good one.
Yeah.
There's also, you want to make it go a little faster through that valley there? When he's the guys go, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and he's trying to get up to the top. He's like, you want to make it move your way through that valley a little faster?
I remember that.
Yeah.
You know.
What about the reference to Jimmy Hoffa's briefcase?
Right.
I remember that.
Oh, I
Right.
forgot
That's
about
funny.
that. Yeah.
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 And then also the rats are. This is the direction that the rats are going. That's good enough
Oh,
for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Because the rats are running away from the water.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones.
I think missing the test swing with the axe
Oh, yes,
that was
yes.
cute.
and him just clearly missing by
Yes.
a long shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's like, oh, it's
okay,
fine,
you're
just
ready.
do
good
it.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's good.
But,
yeah.
but think about how good Cameron is. I've been watching a few Cameron movies lately, and he is so good at taking. We watched Terminator, right? And I watched Aliens the other day, and so on and so forth. He's such a good storyteller, even though he's kind of a jerk. But he's such a good storyteller because he can amp up the problems on problems that turn into other problems, and then by the end, most of the time, except for, the lead character dying at the end of the movie, but still the fact of the matter is Rose lives because all the problems they basically got out and survived. So we get problem on problem on problem, and he sets the table early so you care about all those problems at the end. And what I really like about the axe scene is that at that moment Rose starts the movie helpless, starts to gain a little strength when she meets Jack, realizes there's more to life than the life that she can make choices, with what she wants to do. Even if people don't like it, you can make choices of what's best for you, kind of situation. And she's gaining and gaining and gaining. And then they have that scene where they're waist deep, and she tries to hit the handcuffs, misses, and then she gets it right. And then very soon after that, we see Rose up to her eyeballs in water, making strong decisions to get to the ship. Things are getting worse and worse, and she's going through a darkened hallway with the lights going out, but she's not panicking, and she's saying, no, I can actually do this. I'm going to set my mind to solving this problem. I'm going to solve the problem. I'm going to get on top. I'm going to live. Whereas before, she was trying everything she could do to not live, to end her life as easily and as quickly as possible. And now we are trying our damnedest to unravel these solutions. So it's a neat moment because she's still kind of damsel in distressy when she misses, she can't hit the blind side of a barn, but then she gets her shit together quick, which goes to show the character, right? You're in it and you believe it because it's kind of ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous, but all movies are ridiculous. It's how much you get us to believe it. And I was believing it 100%. Not gonna say, oh, it's tacky.
And she's also in love, so she's trying to save him too.
Right. It's selfless.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, we go from selfish from her family point of view, selfish for the selfish decision to want to end your life, to making selfless decisions.
Yeah.
Which is, again, character arc. We started here and we're ending here, and it's great. That's why you care about her. Anyway, sorry.
Well,
I'll shut
there's
up.
also that moment in the hall that you were talking about when one of the, I don't know, stewards was coming through and started dragging her, come on this way, this is where we go. And she's trying to talk to him, but he won't listen. And so finally she just screams at him, listen, and punches him.
Yeah.
And that was, I feel like, was that the beginning of her really taking her control of things?
Well,
Yeah, because then that's when
close.
she finds the axe.
Right. And had he not let her down that stupid hole, she might not have seen the X. It was kind of like a happy accident. But I think right before that, she also grabbed the elevator guy and goes, "I'm tired of listen, I'm through with being polite, and shoved him. Now take me down." So it's all like just that whole sequence.
Yeah.
That made her, saying, "No, I'm done with this."
So as much as we like Jack, he doesn't need to develop much as a character. He's only there to help her develop as a character. He doesn't change.
No, he doesn't.
He would have, and there's no reason for him to change because he's just fine as he is. So he is the conduit by which she realizes that she can do what she needs to do, which is, again, that's good writing. You put that on anybody else, it's not gonna work. Or you give it anybody actors, not gonna work.
And she sees that he's free and he's happy even though he has no money, and that you can survive that way. You know what I mean? Like compared to what she's living, it's so different.
Right.
Well, and he's also he's appealing in comparison to Cal, not just because he's not abusive, but also because he still lets her have some control over her own life. He's not trying to control her.
Right.
He lets her grow and change. And so not only is he attractive for, physically and his own freedom with his own life, but he also lets her, it's like a good union, right? It's not one person being above the other. It's like they're equals, I guess.
But also Molly Brown kind of says, you also don't need a man, really, because Molly Brown's doing just fine by herself. So even if, no, you know what I mean? I'm trying to think of why she's there. I mean, she doesn't really, she coaxes a little bit, but she's not always in the background going, you ought to leave these guys, they're assholes. You know what I mean? She's not doing that. She's just a strong, independent woman. So really, at the end of the day.
She also was really on the boat. So they're also trying to put characters that were really on the boat. But she's there because she, because she was really there, but also just to kind of show that, he can survive. She can survive. You don't need to act like these people to. I don't know. I can't explain it. I know what you're saying. No. So.
Yeah. Guys, it's a great movie. We got to talk about the door.
Oh God.
We have to talk about the door. We cannot not talk about the door. So,
no, of course. The whole time you're watching, you're like, he could have fit on the freaking door. So, and I know Cameron said he probably could have, because of all the shit that everybody keeps saying, he probably should have just picked a smaller door. So that people couldn't say that. But the reason why the door looked that way, because it was an exact replica of a door that was on the Titanic.
More reason for Jack not to die if it's an exact replica of the door.
Yeah, right.
Because it's the proper dimensions.
Well, also, historically, somebody was found floating on a door, too. I think that's where he pulled that from.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, maybe it was just maybe when it flipped a little bit, they didn't want to keep, because he was really concerned about her more than himself.
Sure.
So he was like, no, I don't want her to, because every time I attempt this, she might just, fall in. And I don't know. That's just, you have to, just
it just
go
pisses
with
you
it
off. I think everyone that's ever seen it has said the same thing. They could both fit on that door.
I know.
Here's my take on that. When I saw the movie, I didn't even realize that. And I haven't even heard that until the middle 2000s. That suddenly that
came
God.
Up. When I started the movie, that's the whole thing I kept saying. I was like, Chris, you're crying at the end of the movie. And you're like, why did she do that? He could have fit on the door, too. I mean, he's smaller than her, for Christ's sakes. He could have fit on the freaking door. I mean, the whole time you're watching it, you're like, what the hell?
I think it's just a payoff. I think it has to be like that. I think, like, at the end of Jaws, scuba tanks don't blow up like that. Everybody knows scuba tanks don't blow up like that. But Spielberg was like, no, the shark's gonna blow up, and I can't Peter Benchley said, yeah, but Steven, they don't blow up like that. I don't care. I've had it for over 2 hours. They're gonna believe it blows up, and I think at the end of Titanic, you just are gonna believe that that's how it's gonna end because you're in it. That's what I think.
It was a better ending too, because she got courage even though he wasn't around to do all these things on her own that they had talked about. You kind of had to end it that way.
Yeah, no, he has to die.
So I mentioned I'd seen some documentaries on the movie, like people the phenomenon of the film itself, and one guy who was like an author, he was going to see it back in the day, and these girls were seeing it for like the 5th time in a row, like like they had seen it 5 times already or whatever, and they were crying their eyes out again. And he asked them, why do you keep coming back? What keeps hitting you so hard? And they're like, well, we're not sad, we're happy because he saved her in her life. Meaning, when they're showing the pictures as she's about to die in bed at the end, as the old woman, you see her. She rode with the horse with legs on each side. She was standing next to that airplane. Yeah. All these things. She lived a life, and she didn't ever need the necklace. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't need all that money to actually live.
Right.
So like that, and that's why they were so. And so he hit everybody just right, I think. Like the right people.
Are you saying that you can just, if you have troubles, you can just figure them out? Like, you actually have, if given the freedom, if you have an issue, you just figure out a way to make it better. You don't necessarily need to compromise your principles. You can just, and she figured it out, obviously, because she ended up fine. So
back then, though, a lot of women were trapped. A lot of women were trapped in loveless marriages and things like that. That's just how it was, like, it's different.
And you brought that up, like, again, bringing it full circle, Melanie. We all romanticize that boat, right? And it symbolizes this thing called the Belle Epoque, right? The good times. And the past was always the good times. But what this movie does is the good past kind of sucked. I mean, it sucks now, too. But the past, like, don't look back on the past like it's awesome. It was actually kind of miserable for a lot of people.
I know,
You know what I mean? So, no, I'm not taking away your point. I mean, it's supposed to look gorgeous.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? We all do that. It's human nature to look at the times before and say, simpler times, that was better. But the people in the 40s are like, remember the 1900s? Those were simpler times. The people in 1900, remember the 1870s? Boy, that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, after the Civil War, but still. So, I don't know. So.
You guys know. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one thing I love about films is when they do the soundtrack right. And I think that the music in Titanic is just incredible.
Flawless.
And it moves the story along so beautifully.
Yep.
Rest in peace, by the way. James Horner died in a plane crash, like sometime, I don't know, last 15 years or something like that. But if you don't feel anything, I'm not saying go like crying out your. Sorry, I can't get my words together. Like crying your eyes. Sorry, I had tea, I swear. Crying your eyes out when the Irish couple is holding each other in bed and it's flooding, and you hear the quartet, the violin quartet.
Or,
I mean, you're
the mother with her kids.
Yeah, you're a soulless bastard. That's all.
By the way, can I add to that? What you're saying right there? In 1997, I was not a parent, so it wasn't reaching me as deeply as it does now. I watch her read, like basically telling them a story. No, I couldn't do it. I'd hold them tight, but I couldn't sit there and act like everything's okay when water is about to rise next to their heads and putting them to bed. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're killing me here.
I was talking to my husband. Like, I would have been fighting. Like, come on, dragging them. I would have been like fighting till the end.
Yeah. She just kind of knew she wasn't going to get out, though, which was so sad. They just knew that they were in, all the way down there, that nobody, and in the movie, obviously they locked the gates in the movie. They said they didn't really do that in real life, but how people were treated in first class and third class. And so she kind of just knew that they were never going to get out. And I don't think she wanted to put her kids through dragging them through water, scaring the life out of them for absolutely nothing, going down with the ship. Maybe she thought if she just put them to sleep and they went to sleep and drowned in their sleeps, it would have been a lot easier on them. She was really thinking about the kids because she knew she wasn't going to get out.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. I just don't think my emotions could allow me to do it.
No, me neither. No.
You know what I mean? I'd still be like, yeah, I know, but.
But
for some reason,
the water wake them up before it actually drowns them?
Yes, that's the
Probably.
But it was all for dramatic.
Plus, it was freezing water.
That movie stinks.
Yeah,
it's so unrealistic. Can't believe I watched that bullshit.
I have something. You said that the elderly couple that was hugging each other.
Yeah.
that couple was, because they took so many characters from their, real people. The elderly couple seen hugging on the bed where the water floats into the room were the owners of the Macy's department store in New York. It was Rosalie, Ida Strauss, and Isidore Strauss both died on the Titanic. Ida was actually offered a seat on the lifeboat, but he wasn't, because they were doing women and children first. And so she said, she goes, "As we have lived together, we shall die together." There was actually a scene that was cut out with her saying, "Where you go, I go," but they cut it out. But that's where Rose kind of got inspired, from that piece that was cut out, because Rose had seen her say that to that guy, and so she kind of said kind of the same thing to what's his face in the movie. But yeah, those were real people.
What's his face? Very emotional scene. What's his
We've already forgotten them. I'll never let go.
I don't know if I know.
No, you know what though? Here's an interesting true story. I went to Hershey Park.
Oh yeah.
I went to Hershey Park years ago.
Yeah.
And it says that Milton Hershey and his wife had tickets to be on Titanic, but she got sick, and they couldn't. They had to cancel the trip, so they couldn't go. Wow. So think about when something that big, it's this inaugural ship, and you're like, how pissed must he have been at that moment?
Yeah.
Prior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh man, this sucks. We could have been on Titanic. And then all of a sudden you're reading the next day, well, I'm really psyched you didn't, thank you for being sick.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have two interesting stories from real people too. You know how when they were on the ship and it was finally pivoting, kind of going, it was all slanted, and there was this guy hanging onto the railing right next to Rose.
Yeah.
He's a real person. His name was Charles, I'm going to probably say it wrong, Joffin. And he not only survived that he survived that. He was hanging on the back of that thing. So some of the stories came from him. And it said that he was able to stay alive in the water for a really long time, hours, treading water and clutching onto debris. At daybreak, he saw a lifeboat, which was collapsible B, and he swam to it, but it was partially filled with water, and it was too full, so he couldn't get in there, so he kind of just hung on to the side, kind of like Jack did with the door, but he didn't die. He was able to survive, and the only thing that was wrong with him was that he had swollen feet. But listen to this, how freaking weird this is. It's like it's like God was trying to kill him on a ship, because before that happened... Before that happened, he freaking survived the Titanic. Before that, he was also on board the SS Oregon in 1886, which also sunk and only had enough lifeboats for half the people. And he survived that as well. Isn't that insane?
Well, then history should
you think he
take
wouldn't
Molly
get
Brown.
On ships anymore.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, they should take Molly Brown's nickname and give it to him, the unsinkable.
I know.
Right.
His name's
And
not
then,
Molly.
the guy that played John Jacob Astor?
Yes.
The actor,
Yeah.
What's his name? Eric Braeden? How do you say
yes.
that? Braeden?
Yeah.
So he was actually a survivor of one of the worst sinking in history, too. He was on, it was called a cruise ship built by Nazi Germany in the 1930s. In 1945, it was used to evacuate civilians from the Baltic. On January 30th, 1945, it was torpedoed by a Soviet submarine, and then more than 9,000 people died, nearly 6 times as many that perished on the Titanic, and Braden was one of the 1,252 people that survived. That's the actor that actually played John Jacob. And then when he was doing this movie, he said he panicked because his last scene was where all that water had to be rushed in at him.
Yeah.
And he said he had never been so terrified in his entire life because there was no way to prepare for that, because you couldn't there was no rehearsal for that because it had to be done at one time. So it was 120 tons of water was coming at him on that scene. So I can't believe he had the guts to play that part after being a survivor from that shipwreck and then doing that, because they did say that a lot of these people were really scared because they did use an awful lot of water.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at, guys, the song that's at church, okay? The last words that are said in the song, Those who peril on the sea.
the
I'm like,
sea.
wait,
Yep.
there are millions of church songs out there. Or maybe not millions, but a lot of church songs out there.
Yep.
Why would you choose that to be the song that you hear
Right.
as you're on a boat? like
True.
for instance, maybe if you're on a cruise ship today, don't show Titanic as a special movie. You know what I mean? Don't
Oh, God, never.
like right. Well, then don't
Never
sing a
fly
song
an
about
adventure.
those who peril on
Yes.
the sea. You know.
It's
Right.
like that's living on an airplane and having the in-flight movie be like Snakes on a Plane.
Oh God, yeah. I watched that for the first time last year. That's funny.
You guys want to
Cool.
do TMI?
Sure. Do we have
Okay.
more of TMI? All right. Sorry.
Well, I know you already
so
had some-
I'm
you had some
sorry,
stuff.
but there was so much. 'Cause it's Titanic. I mean, you know how long this freaking movie is.
Sure.
So there was so much of it. I was like, I'm gonna try to go through some of it while we were doing it because there's just too much. I cut a ton out. I cut
Yes.
a ton out, but
Okay.
I tried to leave some interesting stuff.
All right. Hold on. We're gonna do a theme.
It's time for TMI with Melanie.
Listen to this. I am in the bathroom right before the movie starts. And I'm in the stall, and there's no toilet paper.
Mine are at home in a display case above my bed.
TMI, my friends.
TMI? Too much
I used to say
information.
don't go there, but that's lame.
Now, here's Melanie with your timeless movie info.
All right, Melanie.
So the budget was $200 million and it grossed $2.2 billion. And it says at $200 million, the movie cost more than the Titanic itself. The cost to construct the ship in 1910 to 1912 was $7.5 million. And then in 1997 dollars, it would have been about 120 to 150 million. So the movie cost more than it did to make the ship. Oh, Kate Winslet, after she found out that she had to be naked in front of DiCaprio, she flashed him the moment she first met him.
Fair enough.
To make it easier for her. So she was like, hey, how you doing? You know, James Cameron went on 12 dives to the real Titanic himself. It said that he was overwhelming emotional experience. He was so goal-oriented that he managed to do all the filming shots that he wanted. But as soon as he came back to the surface, he just broke down in tears because of the tragedy. And he ended up spending more time on the ship than his living passengers did. Oh, 1912, the whole movie, all the scenes that were in 1912 back in the olden days, except for the stuff that was like, you know, in the very beginning or the very end, that exact time of filming was 2 hours and 40 minutes, the exact time it took for the Titanic to sink. Also, the collision with the iceberg reportedly lasted 37 seconds, which is exactly how long the collision scene in the movie was. And there's so many actual stories from this movie from real survivors. Like, it's so sad. Like one of the scenes where the two little girls are loaded into the lifeboat, and the man says it's only for a little while. And he also is shown saying, "Hold mommy's hand, be a good little girl." That's from a survivor, Ava Hart. Those were the last words that her dad said to her before the lifeboat was lowered down. Gloria Stewart, being only 86, which aged by makeup to play Rose to be 100. She died at 2010 at age 100. Most of the stuntmen in the engine room scenes were only about 5 feet tall because they wanted to try to make the engine room look larger.
Yeah. All right. That's cool.
The scene where Rose spits on Cal's face had so many retakes that he said his face kind of went numb, and she had to start using lube because her saliva ran out. The post-sinking scenes were shot in a 350,000-gallon tank where the frozen corpses were created, applying powder to the actors, and then crystallized when water was exposed. Wax was applied to their hair and clothes to create a wet look. Academy Award for the Best Song. It was only after the script, The Titanic, was actually finished that Cameron discovered that there really had been a Jay Dawson who died aboard the Titanic. During the part where Rose and Jack are now on the bow of the ship and Rose says, "I'm flying, Jack," the sunset was real, not CGI, and because of that, it had to be shot over 8 days to get the lighting right. With her nomination for Best Supporting Actress at age 87, Gloria Stewart became the oldest person to ever be nominated for an Oscar. James Cameron decided to include real footage of the Titanic's remains on the seabed, but there was nothing that could kind of take that film the way he wanted it to. So Cameron's brother Mike and Panavision developed a deep sea camera capable of withstanding 400 pounds of pressure to be able to get those shots. A recent investigation shows Titanic, if it hit the iceberg head on, would have survived. And the scene where Rose is looking through the quarters for Jack that you guys were talking about, it was real water from the Pacific Ocean, and it was freaking freezing. So her expressions and everything are real. Kate Winslet had so many bruises on all over her body and even a chipped elbow from making this movie. Kidney infections, everything. She had a bunch of stuff that happened to her making this. But her bruises were so horrific that the makeup artist thought it was so cool. So they took pictures of them so that they could use it in their makeup later on for people.
Wow. That's kind of not okay. All right.
Yeah, they were like, that's really good. Can we take a picture of that? So, oh my God, did you guys hear about this? I remember hearing about this. In the documentary, one of the documentaries, I'm sure, Jay, you probably heard this. Somebody put PCP angel dust into the clam chowder, served the cast and crew with this. 80 people were taken really ill. Everybody was delusional. More than 50 were taken to the hospital. And 87-year-old Gloria Stewart, thank God she was spared because she ate somewhere else. And Bill Paxton said he felt listless for 2 weeks after the incident. Somebody spiked the clam chowder.
Oh, that's hate.
Yeah, that's horrible.
That's not a practical joke.
They thought it was somebody that might have been fired, that worked on the crew.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's hate.
Yeah, it's horrible. And they could have killed somebody.
You're taking it out on like all these innocent people, though.
Right, you're right there. Even though this film brought them great fame, both Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet cannot stand their performances in this movie. They can't stand their acting. She can't stand her accent. They're just completely embarrassed by how they acted. The most expensive first-class suite on the Titanic cost $4,350, and in today's money, that would be $75,000 for the suite. The filming remains of the set was used for scrap metal, and the grand staircase that was built into a 5 million gallon tank. They put 90,000 gallons of water dumped through it, and it lowered as they lowered it into the tank to create that volume they needed to kind of destroy it.
Yep.
And to rip it off its steel reinforced foundations. And they think that that's probably the way it really happened, and when it was really sunk, the force of that water, because when they did find the wreck, there was nothing that remained of the staircase anywhere. As elderly Rose exits the helicopter in her wheelchair, she's shown holding a Pomeranian. And that was a tribute to the actual 12 little pets that were actually aboard the Titanic. And only 3 survived thanks to a passenger that ran around trying to free them from their kennels. And 2 Pomeranians and 1 Pekingese survived, and they were smuggled onto lifeboats because they were so tiny. Filming the close-ups of Rose and Jack underwater was very traumatic for them because Cameron weighed them down to a step ladder at the bottom of a tank filled with water. And Winslet especially found it terrifying. As the respirator and mask was removed, they couldn't see anything. And DiCaprio said he never left her side, and he kept trying to rub her legs and everything, trying to just make her feel comfortable because she was panicked. This is for you. This is for you, Chris.
Yeah.
Rose says Jack 80 times, not counting when she calls him Mr. Dawson. But, as far as when Kate Winslet and Gloria says his name 80 times. And then Jack says Rose 50 times.
Nice.
I only have a few more things.
Times.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's too many times.
Before young Rose and her mother and Cal board the Titanic, do you remember that car that was being loaded onto the Titanic? Yeah. That's the car they had sex in. The band's final song was "Nearer, My God, to Thee."
Yep.
And then, did you guys see the alternative ending? I thought it was fake at first.
A UFO comes down.
It's stupid. No.
It's terrible. She had the thing in her hand, and
the Meg comes up
he catches her throwing it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Bill Paxton catches her gonna throw it into the water, and he was like, "Stop, stop!" And it was a whole alternate ending, but it was so crazy. I was just waiting for Bill Paxton to jump in after that. And this is the last one. According to James Cameron. What did you guys think that she died at the end, or do you think she was in heaven dreaming about?
Yes.
Okay,
yep.
That's what I think. But you want to know something? James Cameron said it was meant for the audience to decide whether Rose dies and she's in heaven, or if she's dreaming. He never really said whether she died or not. It was up to us to decide.
I'm into that. That's fine.
Yeah, but I thought the same thing. I thought she was in heaven too.
I think so. I think, and the reason I think it's heaven is because pretty much everybody was decent. Or enough.
Yeah.
That was waiting. Maybe except the
dream about good people.
The gatekeeper guys, they were kind of douchey, but
David Warner.
I was actually paying attention when I watched it yesterday, because when he asks her to meet him at the staircase, it was, I think, 9 p.m. And so I thought, is he going to recreate it and it be 9 p.m. at the end? And it wasn't. I think it was actually maybe closer to the sinking time, if I remember correctly. So I don't know.
Well, then this movie
You were really paying attention.
Yeah, this movie's stupid. A disappointment. So, all right.
Let's do final judgment.
Hit it.
It's time now for final judgment. Are you ready to rubber stamp this bitch? Here's the final judgment.
All right, here's the moment where we decide how well it holds up today. Let's go with Melanie. So get it out of the way because I know you're not feeling too good.
Obviously it holds up. What else do you want me to say?
That's fine.
All right. That nice and quick and simple, right to the point. We don't care why.
Yeah,
it's all right. Chris, go ahead.
I would say it holds up. I'd say it holds up because it's pretty good storytelling. Like I said, he sets the table really well. If it's good storytelling, not just a good story, but good storytelling, it can last for a long, long time. I mean, I don't know what to say. I can understand why people think it's tacky. I can understand why people think it's a little bit much because it's so in the public knowledge that it's easy to kind of make fun of it. Yeah. Because it's been around for so long and because people have like done, there is no boat that exists that some schmuck stands in the front and goes, "I'm the king of the world." There is no boat. So everybody does it. You know what I mean? So for that reason, I understand why. But if you dig deep, it's a very well crafted story that should hold up. So I don't know. It holds up. That's all I can say. Elizabeth.
I still love it. I think it holds up. I will watch it every year.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it every year. I'm not that big a fan of it, but it's certainly really good. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
So. All right, Elizabeth's in. Jason.
Yeah, I think it absolutely holds up. I've bought it a few times. I bought it on tape and then I think DVD, and then I moved over to Blu-ray. So, I'm a big fan of it. Always have been, and so I'm not one of those guys that treats it that way. Like acts like it doesn't, like it wasn't cool. I always thought it was. There's so much to it that I like. I gotta say though, I have started it a bunch of times and not finished it because of the time.
Sure.
Meaning you think you have the time to devote 3 hours and 15 or 3.5 hours, and then you're like, wait a minute, I just wasn't prepared to devote. And then you're like, I'll pick it back up in a couple days, and then next year you're starting it over again. Yeah. I have started it more than I've finished it, but I have seen it a lot, many, many times.
I am one to complain about lengths of movies, and I do remember at the time I went, wow, that was a quick 3.5 hours, 3 hours and 15 minutes. Like it does go by
because the storytelling is so it's great storytelling. And
right in.
I got to tell you, my wife is for some reason really good at noticing this person when she sees her. We have no idea what the actress's name is, but it's the mom that's telling the story to the kids. That's the girl. That's John Connor's foster mother in Terminator 2 that is stabbing the foster father, because Robert Patrick is dressed as her. She's like, "Wolfie's fine, dear," and stabs so she's like, "That's the girl from Terminator 2."
Well, on
and by the way,
well, on that note, the lifeboat that goes back to see if there's any survivors. The gentleman is it Captain Fantastic from the Fantastic Four in 2005?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah. Mr.
Fantastic.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That is him. Yep, Mr. Fantastic.
That's cool.
Now that you say that, because I was like, he looked. I saw him. He looked familiar, but I wasn't sure who he was. But
so, Chris, did you cry at the end of that?
No. I mean, when I saw it in '97, I probably did the old but then I kind of pulled it back, and it's not machismo. And I think I was more distracted by at the moment. And this is I didn't cry about it now because I know the end. But
what about when he goes under the water?
That's terrible. No, let me get. My point is, I did not cry in the theater because I felt some sadness. I'm not being all macho because I'm not.
I get you.
I did not cry in the theater. I think I started to feel that, but then when you listened behind you, all you heard was open weeping, and it distracted you. Literally open weeping. Yeah. And you're like, what is that noise? And you go, oh my God, you turn around like, holy shit. So that's probably was the deal. Like, I've never heard this many people in one spot all cry at the same time. So I think I was just a little distracted. That's all. But I still cried at the end of Rudy. So,
we're going to have to watch that. I can't, I've watched it, but I can't remember it that
movie.
well.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. It's a Notre Dame. Anyway. So, cool.
Yeah, and this was actually a happy accident. I didn't even realize I had Mickey wearing a
sailor hat. Well, because he's the original Mickey.
Steamboat Willie goes down with the ship.
Oh, God.
Not a lot of people know that.
By the way, I love Victor Garber did a great job in this movie, too, like playing Mr. Andrews. I thought he was great.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't he look just, isn't he supposed to look just like the real guy?
I don't know. But,
are we talking about the captain of Titanic? Captain Anderson?
No,
Mr. Andrews.
Mr. Andrews.
Oh.
The guy who built it.
Oh, yeah. He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, the captain, though.
The captain is King Theoden from Lord of the Rings, so just saying.
Yes.
That's right.
Just throwing it out there. Theoden King of the Rohirrim. Rohan.
Well, and we didn't even talk about the late, great Bill Paxton.
I love him.
Well, he's not in it.
You know why?
Much.
It's because, like, we had just seen a movie not that long ago that he was in, so we talked about him so much. Maybe that's why we didn't, but yeah he's amazing.
No, he was always
awesome.
His reputation was always good, which I appreciate. So, anywho, so
same accent in every movie, though.
Yeah.
Just like Matthew McConaughey, you know, like
he was so funny in True Lies. I love his character in True Lies. He nailed that. Bill Paxton. It's so funny. Because it's you, man. Remember?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It is funny.
Well, that was our show, and I'd like to thank Elizabeth from her channel Movies with Mom for joining us today. And you just want to remind everybody about your channel and tell everybody how to see you.
Oh yeah, come check us out. Me. Sometimes I have mom friends react to, but yeah, just reacting to movies I haven't seen, and it's fun. I enjoy it.
That's a fun job.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do many like myself. I would like, wow, I've seen it.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's get those.
Well, it did give me the opportunity. I'd never seen the Rocky movies. And
nice.
I love those. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, they're really good.
All 9.
I don't think I've seen the newest one though.
There's 6, right?
Yeah, and then
there's 6 Rockies, and then they moved on to the Creed.
It's 3 Creeds.
That's what I have not seen. I've not seen those.
Oh, they're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan's great.
Yeah, they're good.
So.
He's a good writer.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank Steve Lavoie for our vocal imaging and Draco and the Malfoys for our theme music. And we'd like to ask that you please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and be sure to hit the bell icon so you can get notified whenever we release a new episode. And be sure to tell your friends about us. I am co-host Jay Fortier, and on behalf of Chris Martineau and Melanie Howerton, I'd like to thank you again for joining us here on the Film Crickets. And until next time, movies may not age like fine wine, but we drink it anyway. Bye.
Film Crickets, chirp about movies.